You could hear some big news in the coming days. Joy Reid seems to have dug the grave of her own career with a blatantly race-baiting and almost race-separatist call to African-American women to disassociate from white women's efforts to save America, using an ugly identity ploy that could very likely have her fired from even a far-left media outlet like MSNBC. You need to watch what she put on TikTok after Donald Trump's electoral victory.
Hey, I just want to give some free advice to the white progressives, particularly white progressive women who may be thinking about marching against the Trump victory, maybe putting back on the P-word hats and doing that thing. I would just say probably don't send any of those invites to any black women you know. I'm just going to tell you right now, they're not coming. I'm pretty sure black women have resigned from the Save America Coalition, Save Democracy Coalition, and definitely the Save the Democratic Party Coalition. I think that's probably not happening. I would just keep those invites maybe among your own friends because I don't think they're coming. But yeah, I think black women are now on the Save Black Women, Prioritize Black Men, and prioritize black communities, black businesses, and that. And, you know, the black spaces, but Save America, Save the Democratic Party. Yeah, I don't think that's happening.
Why does she have to add a racial prefix before every word or argument? That's the most blatant expression of modern left-wing racism than any other example could give you. Not just that, I'm not sure even what Joy Reid wants from the African-American voter base if the results of this election still aren't good enough for her. Kamala Harris received a massive 83% of the African-American vote overall, and of that, 78% of African-American men voted for the Democratic candidate. That's why at the same time, this is also an election that should prove to the Joy Reids of the world that race is not the deciding factor in American politics anymore, nor should it be if only people like her let go of the racial lens. By the way, this is a great time to subscribe and hit that notification bell because we show behind the curtains of the mainstream media and what they will not show you. Now, while Joy has certainly made a radical shift to the left in her politics in the last few years, perhaps even a network like MSNBC is growing uneasy with her giving such a big megaphone, especially when she's got a tendency to get into such unnecessary racial controversy with remarks like this. And if you don't believe me, there's a pretty aggravating clip of her making the rounds online where Joy Reid on her own MSNBC show is calling out Democrat supporters to literally cut off ties with their own family members if they voted Republican.
How do you interact with people who you know voted for this? Right? If you are an LGBTQ person and you know someone in your family voted essentially against your rights, or you're a woman knowing that, you know, this man was calling people the B word, J.D. Vance was literally calling Kamala Harris the trash and said, we're going to take out the trash. I know a lot of black women were incredibly triggered by that. And if you then meet somebody and you know they voted for the people who called you trash, or if you're Puerto Rican, you know, and you know someone voted that way, do you recommend, just from a psychological standpoint, being around them? We got the holidays coming up.
So I love that you asked this question because, you know, there is a push, I think just a societal norm that if somebody is your family, that they are entitled to your time. And I think the answer is absolutely not. So if you are going into a situation where you have family members, where you have close friends who you know have voted in ways that are against you, like what you said, against your livelihood, and it's completely fine to not be around those people and to tell them why, you know, to say, I have a problem with the way that you voted because it went against my very livelihood and I'm not going to be around you this holiday. I need to take some space for me.
Could you imagine having to be the producers on this show and constantly having to walk on eggshells to make sure your channel does not land in legal trouble? And it doesn't even have to be trouble with the law, because MSNBC should have realized by now that playing up a racially charged narrative only chips away at their own viewership. Because remember, MSNBC's majority progressive audience isn't just made up of African American viewers, but all races, ethnicities, and backgrounds who happen to share a politically liberal worldview. And as a news network, MSNBC needs to retain all of that audience to make sure their ratings don't spiral down into oblivion. 60% of the network's audience is female and 70% are white. The cost to benefit for MSNBC of having Joy Reid throwing out blame for the Democrat loss on other races and genders is just too high, and it's only so long before they eventually have to let her go. Megyn Kelly, who has also some friction with Joy in the past, also forecasts something like this happening, and it makes sense given how Megyn understands the inner workings of legacy media.
We've got to spend another minute on Joy Reid. It's a TikTok situation until her ass is fired. It's just, there's no way MSNBC, which is in a full meltdown now about how bad their losses were, there's no way they can keep this woman. I realize they're in the same problem that the Democrat Party is. Like, they have a base that they need to keep. But she and her little friend, Ellie Mistal, are truly the most racist people on television. And here's her latest messaging, as some groups, indeed, are reportedly planning some march, like the Women's March. Now they're trying to get a march ready. That'll do it. They're going to bust out their pea hats again. Okay, all right. They worked out so well the last time. We already knew that you were a far lefty. You didn't have to shave your head. Second of all, the nerve. Like, this is what happens, right? Emily, she looks at the white progressive women as it, like, what more self-flagellation could white progressive women have done to earn the little pat on the head from the Joy Reids of the world? Ladies, pay attention. It doesn't get you anywhere. If the conservative women or the more moderate white women let you down, you will be lumped in. Your whiteness comes first before your progressivism does in this battlefield. You will be diminished. You will be rejected by the Joy Reids of the world until what? Until Joy Reid gets her way at the ballot box, Emily.
Not just that, Joy Reid is severely missing the mark politically and analytically. The left-wing media would be mistaken to think that the pea hat protests that happened back in 2016 around Donald Trump's inauguration can be replicated to the same extent this time. That's because the left in their political activist base is nowhere near as organized and united as it was back then, and Donald Trump is now a much larger political force than he was in 2016. Sure, there may be some scattered protests and demonstrations here and there, but the idea that that could be a large progressive street movement against Trump is largely just a luxury belief that someone like Joy Reid could have. It's a kind of belief that only some people enjoy the luxury to have because they're shielded from the consequences of it, and as long as Joy Reid has a regular paycheck coming from MSNBC, she's got the platform to say racially charged stuff like this without having to worry about living in the kind of world she's advocating. And if you think about it, the idea that you can't just be a traditional liberal or progressive anymore without an active role against conservatives is just an extension of the broader far left strand that wants you to take an active anti-racist stance because apparently just not being racist is no longer enough. In the end, it's how the left ends up eating its own tail, not realizing how it has become the mere reflection of what it hates. Douglas Murray pointed this out recently, and he wasn't afraid to name Joy Reid for it.
You just mentioned one of the particular people who's broken out of the asylum, Joy Reid. She's a pure race baiter. She's a black race baiter who just loves causing racial division in America. And she's one of the very few who's tried to double down since this. I don't see a future for people like her on the media. That their ratings are horrible and their behavior is much more horrible. And so no wonder people are turning off. I think it's really important. I say this, the Democrats who ever want to get back into office again have to listen to this result and realize it wasn't the public that was wrong.
I think he's right, except if Joy Reid eventually does get dropped by MSNBC, she's going to have a really hard time gaining any traction in the world of online media. She's already relegated herself to some corner of TikTok and has announced her exit from X in protest of Elon Musk. I don't think she has what it takes to survive independently outside of the mainstream media, just like Don Lemon didn't. But let me know in the comments if you think her days on MSNBC are numbered, because it is certainly true that a lot of people are just being turned off by her constant appeals to identity inside an America that is clearly moved on far ahead.